Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucks. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. And as always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Recher podcast. Happy December 2nd, 2025. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday, whether you're here in the Tampa Bay area or abroad. Make sure you follow me on all, not just some, all of my social media platforms at Recher. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Every single like and subscription and share certainly helps. Man, power hour for you guys today. I got a meeting at 1:15, big ring ceremony for UT on Saturday night as they celebrate their 10th national championship. So we got a meeting at 1:15 today. So we got a power hour for you guys today, 12 to 1. Let's jam pack it all in there. We'll talk some Bucks, we'll talk some Bolts, and we'll talk some USF Bulls as well. A big thank you, as always, to our partners, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, for all your residential and commercial needs. 813-244-0956, thehonesthammer.com. My guy Russ and the folks over there always doing a great job and always doing great work. And let's not forget EverHealth, everhealth.org. Our EverHealth injury report joining us on Thursday, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, 12:30. Going to be a lot of fun there. Missed talking to him last week. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Hope everybody out there did too. So, again, we're talking Bucks. We're going to talk Bolts. And then joining us at 12:30 today, Seth Varnadore, as I like to call him, Seth Varnadore, from Bay Area Examiner, is going to join us at 12:30. Yes, I'm going to take 20 minutes and not shill for Anthony Beck to be the new head coach for USF. You know, everybody was getting their panties in a bunch yesterday because of that. So I'm going to cut off the shilling for 20 minutes, everybody, so that Seth can give us some legitimate people that he think could now be the head coach at USF after Alex Golesh left for Auburn. We'll also talk about Summerall going from Tulane to Florida. We'll have a good discussion there. And, you know, for that whole thing with AB and USF, people are getting so upset like that was the only choice. Like that, everybody said, oh, he should be the guy. I mean, if they talk to the guy, is it the worst thing in the world? No. Did I say that he was going to be the number one job and he was the number one candidate for the job? No. I said it'd be nice if they gave him a look. This is a guy that knows the game. This is a guy that's had some success. I know people say, oh, it's the UFL. Still, he's a coach. He's a leader of men. He's been around the game. He's a former NFL tight end. He's a guy that's been an analyst for ESPN. He's a guy that's been a pre- and post-game host for the Jets. He's been around the game a long time. What harm does a discussion do? And everybody's like, oh, you're not taking it serious. We deserve better. It is what it is, man. They hire freaking research firms to make these decisions, and they still get them wrong. The fact that a couple of people here in the Bay Area are showing some love to a guy that's an all-around awesome dude that knows the game, that played in the NFL, and people are getting so upset that people are shilling for Anthony Beck. Like, geez, man, you're taking yourself a little bit too serious here. Calm the fuck down. Relax. Nobody said he's number one with a bullet. Nobody said that he's the end-all, be-all. Chill out. And if you want to call me a shill because I'm vouching for a guy that I consider a friend and one of the smartest people that I've been around when it comes to football, and I've been covering it for damn near 15 years here in the city, yeah, okay, fine. Call me a shill. I don't give a shit. Name calling doesn't bother me one bit. It is what it is. But again, I defer to people like the Bay Area Examiner. Of course, they cover USF better than anybody. I've said that multiple times. That's why I have Nate Bond on the show. That's why I have Colin Sherwin on the show. That's why I have Seth Varnadore on the show. I'm never going to say something that I don't like. I'm never going to pretend like I know something that I don't know. You guys, I'm pretty transparent about that. You guys know the sports I cover the closest, but I touch on everything. And I saw a comment today like, oh, people only cover the coaching changes. Well, we know when we're talking about here, we know that's a load of bullshit because we talk about USF all the time. But listen, I don't profess to be an expert at everything or an expert at anything. I give my opinion, I give my 2 cents, and then there we go. For things that I don't know, shit, man, I bring people on to try to enlighten our program. I don't think anybody's too old or too knowledgeable to learn. But the fact that the fact that a lot of people are bringing up Anthony's name, I think it says a lot about him. But what people need to understand is just because people bring his name up doesn't mean he's the end all be all. Doesn't mean that everybody's like, it has to be him. It's him no matter what. What's the harm going to do if they give him a look? If they give him a look, he's not ready. He's got to go somewhere else. He's got to go to like a Jackson State and then go to a Colorado like what Dion did. All right, fine. What's the big deal? What's the harm in that? It's weird, man. It's just weird. People get freaking so bent out of shape for stuff like that, man. It's so crazy to me. Wild. All right, we'll talk more with Seth at 12:30. Again, taking time away from chilling to break it down. Break it down. Degeneration X all day, every day. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We sit here. They're 7-5 in the 2025 season. And, I'm thinking about this team. Is anybody really surprised at the way that this whole thing has gone? I mean, you could be surprised about let's give you some of the things that I am surprised about. Okay, we'll start there. I am surprised that a guy like Graham Barton has struggled so much in year 2. I thought that this guy was going to be on his way to being a Pro Bowl center in the league, and he has not taken that step forward that I think a lot of people thought he was going to do. And listen, filled in admirably at left tackle early in the season, and you could say that stunted his development a little bit, maybe, fine, but I think we're far enough into the season where he should be better than he is right now. I mean, he's getting beat like a drum on some of these plays. It's not good enough. All other surprises. Little surprised that Chris Braswell hasn't taken a step forward, even just a little bit. I mean, he's just invisible in some of these games. I'm telling you, man, we're getting to the point where Chris Braswell is a bigger bust than JTS. Think about that. We've been talking about JTS and Ian. Ian loves him some JTS. We talk about JTS as being one of the bigger busts in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. He was more apparent than Chris Braswell. He made some tackles on special teams. He was at least around the football a little bit on defense. I don't even see Braswell out there most of the time. It's crazy. Getting outplayed by Anthony Nelson. Getting outplayed by Elijah Roberts. Getting outplayed by Elijah Simmons, who was a healthy scratch last week. That can't happen when you're a second-round pick out of Alabama. So I guess I'm a little surprised there. What else am I surprised about? The injuries? I mean, that's part of the game. So I guess, like, when you think about it, when people talk about this team, this is kind of what we thought it was going to be. Early on in the season, everybody got, the Buccaneers look at how great they are. Some people think they're the best team in the league. Baker Mayfield in the MVP discussion. And now look at them. Now we're kind of just meandering like, all right, well, that win wasn't too impressive against Arizona. I'm not as eager and optimistic about playing those 2 games against the Carolina Panthers, right? It's just it's a very weird feeling right now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You don't know where you're at, right? Think about this. If you're a Bucs fan, where are you at with the Bucs right now? You don't really know. You're kind of stuck. You're going, all right, well, they did win that game in Seattle. That's a good win. When you watch this Houston Texans defense, you're like, all right, that's probably I think that win ages pretty gracefully. It looks better as the time goes on. Sucks to lose to the Eagles, sucks to lose to the Lions and the Rams and the Bills and the Patriots, and not just that they lost, but the fashion that they did lose. That's kind of a tough pill to swallow. And I think that contributes to some of the black clouds that are hovering above the fan base right now when you're talking about the Buccaneers. But again, we mentioned this yesterday. We spoke about this weeks ago. For the third consecutive year, the Buccaneers' most difficult part of the schedule was right smack dab in the middle. You had a good feeling that or not a good feeling, but again, we spoke about it on the show. You shouldn't have been surprised. We mentioned it on Beckles and Recher. We'll be live tomorrow, 3:15 from the Dignitary Cafe. We spoke about the very real possibility that the Buccaneers were going to go from 6-2 to 6-5. That shouldn't really have been a surprise, especially after they lost that game to the Patriots. And you look at New England, what they did last night to the lowly Giants. I mean, it's a well-coached team. It is. Once they lost that game, you had to know it was going to be tough sledding, going up to Buffalo to beat the Bills and then going cross-country to take on the Rams. 6-5 became a reality. But was it surprising? I wouldn't say that. Wouldn't say that at all. And now you look at this team, and for the realistic Bucs fans out there, for even the pessimistic Bucs fans out there, you kind of look at this team and you don't know whether it's glass half full or glass half empty. And even though the cavalry's not on its way for, let's say, the pass rush, you're starting to get good news on the injury front. You're starting to get some positive news when it comes to, maybe Elijah Cansey will be back. He's working out on his own on the side. Mike Evans could be working out and practicing with the team in the next week or so. Jalen McMillan has been cleared to practice with the team. So now you're starting to look at this team going, where are the reinforcements coming from? The trade deadline is passed. This is not a team that goes out there and they're not going to sign a Kaiser White. They're not going to sign any of these other free agents that are meandering out there. The only reinforcements, the only cavalry that is coming are guys that have been banged up and we thought were going to be out possibly a little bit longer. The effect that a Elijah Cansey, that a Jalen McMillan, and a Mike Evans could have on this team, and we spoke about this with Ian yesterday, you may not get them back at a Pro Bowl and all-pro type level, but what they can contribute in spurts, what they can do in a supplementary role, what they can do for an unquantifiable impact, something you can't put a number to. I mean, you look at Mike Evans more than anything. The impact of Mike Evans just being out there on the field can do wonders for Baker Mayfield in this offense. Look at it last year. Don't tell me that record didn't matter. I was in the building. There are very few times in the years that I've been covering the Buccaneers that I heard the building as loud as I did last year when Mike Evans got that catch against the Saints to go over 1,000 yards for the 11th time in history. Very few times. Everybody wanted that record. Mike, his teammates, Liam Cohen, Todd Bowles, every single freaking fan in the stands at Raymond James Stadium that day wanted that record for Mike Evans. The impact that guy has on this team, you can't quantify with numbers. You get him back, the Buccaneers are more dangerous. The Buccaneers believe in themselves more. It's another outlet for Baker Mayfield. Yes, but there's also a modicum of professionalism. That's one of your leaders. What he can do to certain guys on game day. Shit, on the practice field. That's the kind of stuff people don't talk about enough. So while this has been such a funky year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I don't know if it's really all that surprising outside of the couple things that I mentioned. Graham Barton, Chris Braswell, these young guys coming in and playing. I don't know if that's necessarily surprising. We look at what Jason Light's able to do. So when you see the contributions from a Jacob Parrish, when you see contributions from Elijah Roberts and Tej Johnson, is that surprising? I don't think so. I'm just hoping that the Buccaneers are at a place where these reinforcements will be enough so that they can go toe-to-toe with some of the better teams in the NFL. And we're going to talk Lightning in a bit, but here's one thing that I think that the Buccaneers need to adjust this year and moving forward. And it's part of the reason why I wasn't bullish on the Tampa Bay Lightning going into the season. And you guys remember me saying this. A lot more bullish going into the season about the Buccaneers than the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's kind of flipped now for me. And the main reason why I was not as optimistic about the Bolts was because I didn't know if there was enough young players to push for playing time. It just seemed like it was going to be the same old song and dance with the Lightning. 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, 2 goaltenders. What's different? What's closing the gap? How is this going to be any different than last year? You're trying to go toe-to-toe with the Florida Panthers. What kind of adjustments did you make? How did you fortify your blue line? How did you give yourself more firepower up front? We didn't see it going into the season. We love what we saw in the preseason, but was it going to translate to the regular season? We didn't know, and I think early on, we didn't see it. It was the same stale approach that we saw last year. But then some guys got hurt, some guys got called up, and you started to see a different iteration of this Lightning team. You started seeing Dominic James pushing for more playing time. Couldn't take him out of the lineup. You're seeing a guy like Charles-Edouard Dastou, who is a top defenseman in every league he plays in, and he jumps into the lineup, and you can't take him out. He's one of the best players on the team. Those guys pushed for more playing time. And then we started having conversations about Darren Radish and Gage Gonsalves, and Jack Finley gets scratched, and Curtis Douglas doesn't play as much, right? You start, all right, where are we at? We don't even hear of a guy like Connor Geekie. That type of competition within a team is so freaking healthy. Guys cannot become complacent, and you're always pushing to get better. And that's something that I didn't think the Tampa Bay Lightning had. Now they do, and I think it's a huge reason why they're one of the best teams in the NHL right now. I don't necessarily see that with the Buccaneers. I don't see internal competition. I don't see guys being sat down on the bench for making mistakes. You have 53 men on a roster. You got guys on the practice squad. And I'm sure everybody watched that game, and I'm sure you watched the game like this. But I remember watching that game, and I don't know if anybody else picked this up. But I'm watching the Sunday night game against the Rams, and I'm in my hotel in St. Thomas. And I'm watching the game, and I'm listening to Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth speak about Sean McVay and speak about Shula and that Rams defense. And one of the things that they said was that everybody plays. Everybody plays. And the only way that everybody plays is that everybody's doing their job, everybody's good enough to be out there, and there's competition within the position groups. You're not just out there to be out there. You're not just out there because you're a high draft pick. You're not just out there because you got paid a shit ton of money. You're not just in there because it's a rotation. You're in there because you've earned your playing time. And I've been a staunch defender of Todd Bowles the last couple of years. And I do like that he is loyal to his players. And we've even said it, whether it was JTS, whether it was Ryan Neal, he's Devin White, he's loyal to a fault. But this is one thing that I do think that the Buccaneers need to take a serious look at as they go forward with this roster. There needs to be more internal competition. Now, last year, when you're dealing with injuries and you got guys like Merriweather, you got guys like Josh Hayes, these are guys that are special teams dudes filling in because of all the injuries. I get that. And that's part of the reason why I was optimistic about the Bucs going forward this year, is because they were able to use some of their resources in free agency and in the draft on the defensive side of the ball, bringing Hassan Reddick in, bringing in Anthony Walker, even though it didn't work out, but spending draft picks on Elijah, on David Walker, on Benjamin Morrison, on Jacob Parrish. That you would think that would make you a little bit better, but it also promotes competition. We see, and here's the thing, We saw a little bit of it. Where? At the cornerback position with Jamel Dean and with Benjamin Morrison. And it was a hot topic of conversation. People are like, why? Because Jamel's playing so well. Benjamin Morrison is not playing all that great. He's been dealing with injuries. Does it have to do with Jamel Dean being a free agent and taking less money and Benjamin Morrison being a second-round draft pick? Yeah, a lot of it. There's a lot of things that go into that. But that competition, I think it breeds success in the long run. It didn't work out in that scenario. But then Benjamin Morrison, I mean, he's not 100%, obviously. But you need more of that. You need more of that push. You need more of the young guys to say, I want more playing time. That's the only way you're going to be good. And we saw it years ago. Antoine Winfield Jr. as a rookie pushing for more playing time. Remember? Looking at Devin White being a guy pushing for playing time and those guys being starters and Tristan Wirfs stepping in at right tackle, right? It happens. We saw it last year with Graham Barton. Remember, it wasn't handed over to Graham Barton. It was him. It was Robert Hainsey. Remember, there was a battle there. I know this one was a little bit of fluff, but Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. I know ideally Todd Bowles and Jason Light would probably want a more veteran guy than a guy like Kyle Trask, but that competition forced Baker to have that type of confidence, to have that type of leadership, to really show his best to earn that right. He didn't deserve it. He earned it. And far too many times with this Buccaneers team, I don't see it. I don't see it. Now, when I talk about this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I want to get to this before we get to Seth at 12:30. Again, Power Hour today. Make sure you guys out there check out my guys, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, Ever Health, my two partners. I love them so much. Any work that you need done around the house, I know it's tough. You want to be able to trust the people that are working on your home. Honest Hammer Custom Builders, thehonesthammer.com. All your residential and commercial needs. Let them know that you heard it right here on the Jay Recher podcast. And you can get a discount. Can't beat it. And they help out first responders too. So, check them out. Thehonesthammer.com. Russ and the family over there, they are the best. And EverHealth, 17 different locations in Pinellas County, everhealth.org. They don't want to be your last resort. They want to be your first resort. Everything. You're talking dental. You're talking about things for your kids. As you get older, you want a place that you can trust. They got a sliding scale for the uninsured. They take all kinds of insurance. I love EverHealth. And don't miss our EverHealth injury report every Thursday at 12:30 with the unbelievable doc, Dr. Carlos Rodriguez. Unbelievable is what you could say about our Tampa Bay Lightning and how they've played over the last couple of weeks. And the competition, as I was just alluding to when speaking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, obviously we see that same thing with the Lightning. But one thing that is really interesting to me is one of the recipes for success for the Bolts here during this run has been the combination of Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point. Now, we know how dynamic they are offensively. But defensively, and I've said this before on the show, listen, they leave a little bit to be desired. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Not many people say that, but it's kind of the reality of the situation. I thought playing with Steven Stamkos, you're talking about three guys that aren't ever going to win a Selke trophy. And I've been on record saying I think that Steven Stamkos got unfairly blamed for the defensive shortcomings of that trio. And when you bring in a guy like Jake Gensel, who that's kind of his game, of course the numbers are going to be better when you replace Stamkos with him. Doesn't mean he's better. He's just a different player. You could have other centers around the league that are really good players. You replace him with a prime Sidney Crosby. He's one of the best 2-way forward. Of course it's going to happen. Jake Gensel's that guy. Playing, learning from a guy like Sidney Crosby. So a lot of times, and we know that John Cooper is not afraid to make changes. He's not afraid to put those lines in a blender. But I think there was some apprehension from the fan base that I don't really want to mix, or I really don't want to take away Nikita Kucherov from a guy like Braden Point. Because Nikita plays the game, even though it's very slow, he makes quick decisions. And Braden Point, with his ability to play the game quickly and fast, they have been a pretty harmonious pair when they're flying up and down the ice and their offense is clicking on all cylinders. But what we've seen lately, and unfortunately this has to do with a guy like Braden Point being injured, we've seen Nikita Kucherov take his game to the next level. Why? Because he's playing with Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. And I think that this is the line that needs to be together moving forward. Even when Braden Point comes back. Because what you have in Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel are two just absolute dogs on the puck. Two guys that get up and down the ice. Two guys that value just as much as what they do on the defensive end as they do on the offensive end. They have an unspoken chemistry that you see every single time they hit the ice on the penalty kill. You saw it in the Four Nations tournament for Team Canada when they were able to help them win gold. That's why I think it's asinine to think that those two guys will not be on Team Canada. It's not an all-star game. You're trying to win gold in the Olympics in Milan. I think it's crazy to make these rosters and not have both Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel out. Have Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel not on that list. The coach is the coach, the GM's the GM. They understand the value. And I think, and here's the thing, I saw Brandon Hagel talking to Connor McDavid last week or 2 weeks ago after the game when the Lightning beat the Oilers, and they spoke for a long while. And I just, you never know who's, I'm not privy to the conversation. It wasn't eavesdropping, but a guy like Connor McDavid, a student of the game, a guy that wants so bad to have his name etched on the Stanley Cup one time. He's achieved everything you can do individually. He's yearning for that team's success. I guarantee that Connor McDavid, after playing with Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel, appreciates the hell out of those guys. I remember talking to John Cooper about coaching Connor McDavid and just Coop talking about what a professional he was. And you understand the precedence that Coop and Julian put on the style of play of Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel. Their chemistry, the grit that they play with, that dog, that jam that you hear a lot of people talk about. Those guys are just incredible hockey players. Are they going to be 100-point goal scorers? I don't know. Maybe Hagel. I don't know if Cirelli ever will be. But those are the type of guys you need if you're going to be a winning hockey team. And when you put them on the line with Nikita Kucherov, you free up ice for one of the most dangerous players in the National Hockey League. You give Nikita Kucherov space to operate. And that is an absolutely terrifying thing to think about if you are going up against the Bolts. Because you hear this all the time when you're talking about Nikita Kucherov. Take away his time and space. Get in his grill. What did Florida do the last couple of years? What did Toronto do in that series a couple of years ago? They got up in his face. But if you do that now, and you put so much focus on Nikita Kucherov, Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel will eat you alive. They will grind you down, and you'll be in huge trouble. They're not just going to beat you with the glitz and glamour and the speed and the skill and the talent. They're going to beat you with will. That's demoralizing. Mentally. Physically, you're going to be a step behind. So if you have Hagel and Cirelli working together with a guy like Nikita Kucherov, watch out. What does this mean for a guy like Braden Point? We'll find out. It's a good problem to have. Maybe you play him with a Gensel and a Bjorkstrand. That's a different look that we haven't seen. But if the Lightning can be balanced, if they can be more well-rounded, I mean, watch out for this team. Because they're not just a team that's going to outscore you. They're a team that's going to outplay you. And what does that sound like? It sounds That sounds like the team that won back-to-back cups in 2020 and 2021. All right, we're going to take a break from talking Lightning. We're going to take a break from shilling for Anthony Becht, and we're going to talk all that. I own it, bro. I don't care. I don't give a shit, man. We gotta talk about all things USF and all things Gators with our guy, the great Italiano Seth Varnadore from Bay Area Examiner. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I listen. Anthony is a good friend. I wanted them to give him a look. I didn't say he was the number one candidate, and everybody's like, I'm eroding the trust of the local Tampa Bay media. I'm like, holy shit, man! Like, I just brought up one guy. I didn't even give my list. I didn't say anything. I mean, I defer to Bay Area Examiner. I mean, my goodness, it's been kind of funny, the backlash, and you guys have been right in there too. So it's been fun. This discourse for Anthony Becht's been pretty wild, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, people seem to be pretty upset about it.
They get so mad.
I don't know. I mean, everybody's got their guy that they're kind of irrationally excited about. So maybe that's Anthony Becht for a lot of people. I don't know.
And that's the thing. It's like, it'd be one thing if somebody put like this big picture up and it was like, this is the guy, he's going to be number one. I'm like, people just mentioned him, bro. That's it. Like, they were just like, he wants the job. He told everybody he wants the job. We're just going to be like, hey, Anthony Becht, give him a look. Why not? Like, we're not making the decision. It gives a shit. No. If somebody's like, hey, Brian Hartline's definitely better than Anthony Becht, you know what I'm going to say? Even though I don't know Brian Hartline, I'm going to be like, okay, good. Let's do it. Let's do it. So
it's worth the glance, worth the cursory glance. It works.
Yeah, who cares, man? Send then, if he's going to go coach at freaking Jackson State, whatever, who cares? Do what he got to do. Yeah. Where's your surprise level of Alex Golesh leaving and going to Auburn? Mine was relatively low.
Yeah.
I was just like, it ain't surprising to me. I don't know what you heard. I said this on the show yesterday, and I really didn't talk about it until yesterday because he was definitively gone. But I had a guy within USF tell me in year one that he wouldn't have been surprised if Alex Golesh left after the first season, just because he had the taste of Tennessee. He had the taste of SEC football. This person thought that this was just going to be a stepping stone job all along. I held that under my hat because I wasn't sure. And now we're seeing with the entire process of this whole thing that if it wasn't Auburn, it might have been Arkansas, it might have been somewhere else. What's your take on Alex Golesh and just how he went about this entire situation?
Yeah, I mean, this is when you're in this conference, this is kind of how it's going to be, I think, right, until you get out of it. So it's not surprising. I know it's not fun to be thought of as a stepping stone job, and that's not enjoyable. You thought maybe the allure of the stadium could possibly keep him around, but they were almost too good this year for that to kind of happen. And he's done a really good job. So this is not surprising at all. And you'd much rather have your coaches being hired away than continually having to fire people and start over. So, I think you can be upset that you lost your coach, but you got to be happy with kind of what he did, how he laid the foundation. But this is, if you're in the American and somebody from the Big Ten or the SEC comes calling, it's going to be really difficult to keep that guy. So I think they seemed like they tried everything they could, but it's just like when we can be like, all right, we'll match whatever base you can get from your current school. And if you win 12 games, you can make $12 million. Okay. All right. These dudes are confident, man. Like that's what, Arkansas, I think it is somewhat helpful perception wise that you lose a coach to Auburn rather than Arkansas.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe softens the blow a little bit, but all these dudes are super confident and think they can take whatever job they get to win. So even if you left for Arkansas and you might be thinking, well, that's a dead end job. Vanderbilt just flipped a 5-star quarterback from Georgia today. So
yeah,
are there any dead end jobs anymore? I don't know. It's all about investment.
Yeah. And I also think that if you're so worried about being a stepping stone job, Ole Miss was a stepping stone job. When you think about it, right? Like that's where we're at, Seth. Like
Brian Kelly left Notre Dame to go to LSU. Like
right. That's
Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma.
Exactly. So when somebody tells me they're like, like Kalen DeBoer, like that whole thing, they're like Kalen DeBoer, he's in the Penn State might be looking into Kalen DeBoer, and somebody goes, he'll never leave Alabama. I looked at him, I was like, Yeah, maybe 5 years ago I might say that, but now, like, yeah, it is Alabama. I get it, and it still would be surprising, but I wouldn't be shocked now, right? Like,
No.
it's all what people want. It's everybody's got money. Everybody understand that the landscape is changing. Maybe Kalen doesn't really like the SEC. Maybe he's not an Alabama guy, so you know what I mean.
No,
so it's just
he's
like
not.
it's just. And I've said this for a long time. I think it's just inevitable for Dabo to go there. Like, I just feel like that's kind of the natural like order of things. But we'll see. We'll see. It's just it makes it fun. I mean, it makes it fun to be able to talk about this kind of thing. As far as Alex Golesh goes, what do you think happened with the entire discussion with Arkansas, Auburn, as far as the timeline goes? And do you think that had any effect on the lack of preparation that we saw in losses to Memphis and Navy?
No, I mean, these guys got agents. These agents are fielding calls all the time.
Right.
I'm sure they talk quickly. It doesn't take long to have a conversation. So, in-depth interviews, possibly there's some, but it's not like Golesh is having to put together a ton of resources on this is my vision for the program. He's running a program right now. Like he's got, he's kind of, this is what I do. This is how I do it. So even if there were interviews, I don't think it's that much of a distraction. I'm sure it divides your mind somewhat, but he didn't take a lot of defensive coaches with him, so I don't think they were super distracted going to the Navy game,
right?
Which was kind of the issue. So it's I think that stuff's a little overblown. You saw, I mean, you want to talk distractions? Lane Kiffin might have been a bit of a distraction the last month, and they seem to win They seem to win every game since then. So. I think that's a little bit overblown. I think they lost 2 coin flip games.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, on the wrong side of both of them. But they're still 1-score games that, you turned the ball over and led directly to points that were kind of give you a chance to win the game if you don't do that. So I don't think that was distraction. I think they just kind of lost those games, unfortunately, but that's just kind of the way it is. I don't think he was wasting a lot of time on these other jobs, but I'm sure it had some of its attention.
One of the big questions that I think a lot of college football fans want to know that, all right, Alex Golesh is leaving USF. He goes to Auburn. Coach Golesh leaves to Auburn. What happens with Byron Brown? Do you think Byron Brown follows Alex Golesh, leaves USF, and heads to Auburn?
My kind of thought, and I'm not a journalist. I'm more of an analyst. I kind of so I'm not sourced here. So don't take my word as gospel. But my thought, going in this whole year, is Byron Brown is going to go get paid somewhere next year. Whether it's maybe has a great year and goes to the NFL, tries that process, or goes to trying to get a NIL bag somewhere. That's kind of been my thought process the whole time. I think that's why, you kind of had a kid like Lachlan in there who's going to be the heir apparent, give him a year to get ready. He's going to take over is what my thought was the entire time, especially with how much run he got in the spring and how they talked about him. It seemed like, okay, they've got their heir apparent. They're expecting Byram to leave after this year one way or the other. So that's kind of that thought only gets strengthened when the coach leaves. Mm-hmm. I think it would be difficult to keep him. I'm sure they're going to try, but I would not be shocked if you saw a ton of dudes enter the transfer portal. Maybe you're able to retain them with who you get, but don't be surprised to see a bunch of dudes go in.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And that's why a lot of people are wondering how long is this process going to take? And if you had to put – and somebody asked me a timeline yesterday. I said hopefully sometime in the next 2 weeks. But I know Rob Higgins and Derek Brooks, they are scouring the entire country. They're casting a wide net, and they're going to have these different conversations of guys that they're going to bring in. I know I saw your big board today, man. It was a legit board. I mean, you went all over the place.
When you put like every coach possible on it, you're bound to hit. That's I'm casting a wide net.
Oh man, Seth put Bill Cowher on there. He put
I saw that speech about Lane Kiffin and thought he's ready to get back.
He's ready to go. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but Seth was digging. He was running around cemeteries and trying to get Bear Bryant. he was trying to get everybody. All right, so give me a couple names, man. Maybe from a couple of the list of some guys that we mentioned Brian Hartline before. Just give me some of the guys that you think really could be in that short list for the Bulls job.
Yeah, it somewhat depends on what they're looking for. To me, and I kind of laid this out in my board. These are to me the things you want to have in the next coach. Somebody that's proven they can recruit at a lower level, because it is different recruiting at Alabama and USF. You've got to do different things, find different guys. Understanding of how modern rosters are built through NIL and the transfer portal. So that's why, like, a guy like Anthony Beck, it's tough because he's not had to deal with that. Now his son played, so maybe he's he understands the dynamics of it. I'm sure he made some money because he was a really good player. So he probably understands the NIL side. But that's kind of where it's difficult to come in. And even like a guy like Gruden, who's a name that's been thrown around, he's never had to do this. And, so, and then I think the other thing that's important is to have a guy with an offensive background.
Yeah.
It's not a prerequisite. You could get a defensive coach, but the American seems to be offense heavy, and the best teams are usually pretty good on offense. Defense is so tied to what kind of players you have. And if you have really good players, you can have a really good defense. But usually if your players are bad, you don't have a great defense.
Yeah.
So
unless you're like a Temple.
Yeah. So you've got
tough.
So you've got to kind of, I think it's easier at this level to have a really great offense than it is to have a really great defense. So one name that's going to come up a ton, I think, is Willie Simmons at FIU. He seemed to be a candidate the last time the job was open. He did a really good job at FAMU. Ended up going to Duke to be the running back coach first year at FIU this year. He's done really well. I think they've won 7 games, a chance to win 8, which they haven't done very much there. Jerry Mack's a guy at Kennesaw State. If you want to keep the same offense, he's running the Tennessee offense. So you'd have some scheme, not have to change too much. Interesting, like bigger guys that have been head coaches before that are kind of out in the Mountain West. You get Dan Mullen and Sean Lewis would kind of be interesting names, just because Mullen obviously has ties to Florida, a really good offensive coach. And then Lewis both those guys have kind of done more with less throughout their careers at times. Mullen obviously at Mississippi State, Lewis at Kent State, who's been pretty terrible their entire history. Yeah. And he made a couple of bowl games. I think he made the MAC championship and had one of the best offenses in the country by a lot of stats. So he would be interesting. And I don't know, there's a ton of names you could get to. I'm always going to throw Kerwin Bell out there because he's the man. But there's a lot of ways to go. You could go the Signetti route and go get a really good FCS coach that's been winning. You could go what they did last time and go get a coordinator, like you mentioned, Hartline. Yeah. He would be interesting just for his recruiting prowess. You look at the receivers, they're all from Florida and they're all really good. And he's come in and gotten them. He's developed receivers. He's kind of responsible for that assembly line of really stud receivers going from Ohio State to the first round of the NFL draft. Does he really call plays? That's the question. Like, what does he really do? So he's been a name that people kept pushing at, like Penn State and things like that. I don't know. The interesting thing. Now I had Will Stein on there. He's out now, but this will be interesting to see, especially with North Texas and Tulane open. What is the perception of the USF job? Now, when the Golish rumors came out, it came out that USF was going to be a full rev share participant. Nobody else, I don't think, in conference is doing that, are going to be able to do that. There are some Power 4 teams that probably won't spend up, that 20.5. So if that's the level of investment, I would think USF is the top G5 job, and with the ability to kind of get as much talent as you can if you use that money correctly, you should be able to win a ton.
So not just the top job in the American, the top G5 total.
Yes, I would think. Yeah, if you're spending up to the cap on the rev share, and the conference is like, you got to spend at least $3 million over this,
I remember that too.
Like you saw Charlotte is really excited about getting $3 million or $4 million together for their roster, and USF's like, we're spending up to 20.5 on football, basketball, and women's. So it's a different game. They're already way out ahead with the $10 million they spent this year, allegedly. So, would a guy like a Glenn Schumann, who's the defensive coordinator at Georgia, who's kind of really waited around for a job, was up for North Carolina last year, has been up for a bunch of big jobs, but hasn't quite taken that next step. Would this job be appealing because you can kind of go in, have the best roster of anybody on your schedule, just about, win a ton of games, make the playoff, and then get your experience as a head coach? Would it be appealing to a guy like that who's kind of waited for a really good opportunity? Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see because Tulane is going to invest, but not at this level. North Texas, I don't think is going to invest at the level, but it's a good job just geographically. I don't know. There's a lot of ways they could go that are exciting and I think would be good. But it's going to be interesting to see how the job is viewed by people on the outside.
Yeah, I remember when the American commission Pernetti was in town and they were talking about the money, and I look at somebody at USF, I'm like, this is great, and they looked at me and they were like, we're spending way more than that, and I'm like, good, good, that's what you want to hear. And listen, for all the talk about, all right, well, we don't want to just be, they're positioning themselves. They know, in the ever-changing landscape in college football, they're getting ready. They want to compete with the big boys. They don't want to just compete in the American. So I think that's a really good sign going forward because you don't want to hear about that kind of stuff, right, Seth? You want to see it. Like, see it, show me, spend the freaking money.
And I think that's kind of the other interesting aspect of the timing of this hire is you're really close, I think, to being able to take that jump. So do you want to take a risk on a guy like Brian Hartline, who's really high upside potentially, but we're not sure he calls plays even at Ohio State. And he's not, he's just been a position coach, has a really good rep, but, or do you go get a guy that's solid that is going to have a nice floor? Hey, maybe he's not the most exciting hire, but we're going to win 8-9 games every year. And that's going to be our floor. So when this realignment comes up, you're like, well, USF's been a really winning program. They win 9 games every year, and some years challenge for the conference championship. I don't know. That's kind of going to be the interesting part of it. You could sell either one, I think, to the fans is, hey, we want to keep our upward trajectory going, or you can say, hey, we're going to take this home run swing. We've got a lot of investment. We trust this guy's got the goods. And we're going to take our shot. So it will be I think it could play out a ton of different ways, which is interesting and a little unnerving, I'm sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And I look at Brian Hartline, and we look at some of the stud wide receivers that USF has been able to bring in this year. So Hartline comes in, maybe those guys stay, right? Because he has that good pedigree with the wideouts. But yeah, it's always scary, man. It is always scary to me when a guy that goes from a position coach or a guy that goes from a coordinator to be the head coach. And they say that a lot in college basketball or in NBA. It's like the biggest difference is sliding over just 12 inches to that next chair. And, I like what you said about like Anthony Becker, that whole thing. Like, this is in a completely different process than even college football was 5, 10, 15 years ago, because you're kind of working with a GM. You're kind of partially the GM. You're working like NIL, transfer portal. National Signing Day was such a big deal, and now it's just like, well,
you talk about timeline. Like, you really just need a coach in before the portal opens because you're punting on tomorrow. Tomorrow's signing day.
Yeah,
you're punting on that. If anybody signs with you, appreciate you. Glad you want to be a Bull.
Yeah,
you can't begrudge anybody for not signing or going somewhere else because you gotta, these guys have got to make sure they have a spot because these spots. Trust, as someone who's kind of dealing a little bit with the recruiting side through coaching and things like that, it is really difficult for high schoolers right now with the transfer portal. So I can't begrudge anybody for, hey, I got a spot, I got a scholarship, maybe I got a little bit of money thrown my way. I've got to lock it down because the portal has crushed high school recruiting, especially on lower levels. So, don't begrudge anybody that goes and goes somewhere else that decides, hey, I want to take some certainty tomorrow. But I would think they're punting on tomorrow. So you basically got till the portal opens to get somebody in.
That's a good point, though, Seth. I think a lot of people are looking at the other aspect of it, or the Wild Wild West, and people. There's also some of those other players that are like, I need security because I don't know.
Yes, I need some certainty.
So,
this school is offering me a scholarship and a little bit of money. I might want to jump on that. So their high school coaches are probably saying, take it. Bro, take some certainty. And that's just how, some people are more risk averse. Some people are want a little bit more risk. But for those guys, and that's why I think you've seen a lot of guys, we had somebody on Discord being like, what's, all the USF commits are saying unfortunate circumstances. They're like, well, the coach just left. But it's like, they had stuff lined up. They got to make a quick decision. It's possible, they haven't had contact with their staffs for a long time because they said, "Hey, I'm 100% committed," maybe even 1,000% committed, as some of them would say. So they may not have talked to any other staffs for a while. So it's a difficult time for them. And if you wait until after the transfer portal, it's possible, you get more because you see guys left, but it's also possible your spot gets filled with a grown man and now you're left in the lurch. So
yeah, no doubt. A guy that was a 4-star somewhere else. Yeah, that's not great. All right, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the Florida job. First, surprised that they didn't make a harder push for Golish, and now that they've kind of settled on Summerall and he's there and the family's there, what's your take on the hire?
Yeah, I don't know. It's I think Golish was maybe one of their options down the road. I don't know. Summerall, he's a guy. So when we covered the American Conference Media Days, I went with Colin from the Bay Area Examiner and various other places. We went and we got a chance to interview Summerall, and we both came away like, this guy is a dude. He's got the next big thing. He's very charismatic, really kind of a alpha type A kind of guy in person. And, Colin came away saying this guy's going to win national championships. And we were really impressed with him. So I think he's a guy that's been kind of, especially in different searches, kind of the next big thing in a lot of people's eyes. Now, he's not a sure thing, which I think a lot of Florida people thought they were getting in Lane Kiffin.
Right.
So there was some disappointment. He did a really good job in the press conference yesterday, which, usually you win the opening press conference. Some guys don't do, but I thought he did a really good job. And he's going to, I think, pick up more and more kind of adoration from the Florida fans as it goes. Now, a lot will depend on who he hires as his coordinators at Florida. But he seemed to be kind of that next tier down in a lot of people's eyes around the country from kind of the Lane Kiffins. He does have a slightly longer and better track record than Golish. So I think Golish could have gotten to eventually, but Summerall seemed to be the guy they set their eyes on after Kiffin. So, and they got that done, and it seemed like Auburn and Ole Miss might have wanted him as well. So they kind of Lane Kiffin's decision kind of got Golish to Auburn. I think it kind of was a cascading effect there.
That's pretty wild. And I don't know if you saw this, but there was a CBS Sports report about the kind of the frosty relationship with Strickland and Lane Kiffin, which was they're kind of like oil and water. They didn't mix, and he wanted to bring in his own GM, and Lane's like, nah, I'm bringing my guy. Like I feel like in a different world, right? In a different multiverse, Lane Kiffin's probably the head coach of Florida today, isn't he?
Well, if they fired Billy Napier last year, he's probably the head coach of Florida right now.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
It's interesting when Dan Mullen got fired, and I've been covering Florida, so I had Colin, the aforementioned Colin, on to talk, and Colin knows some people, and we were talking about Lane Kiffin as a candidate in 2021, and he's like, Florida's not going to hire Lane Kiffin just because of some behind the scene things and some admin stuff that they didn't approve of. Now, maybe we've seen some of that come out on Twitter recently. I don't know. So it was kind of it seemed like there was some resistance to him, but apparently they kind of worked through that and thought, all right, this is the guy we need to go after. He's kind of cleared the things we thought. He's grown up a little bit. I don't know how that worked, if that's true or not. It just seemed, but it seemed like they did not kind of have that was kind of the rumor going around that Kiffin does not want to work for Strickland. Yeah. And that was something that people had been saying kind of behind the scenes for a while, but it seemed like they may have gotten past that. $13 million gets you past a lot of things. It didn't seem to work. When I think if LSU didn't come open, Kiffin would be Florida's coach. But once LSU came open, he had a different option. That's pretty similar, possibly better, depending on who you ask of a job. He decided to go that way. So yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting search. These will all be kind of in 3 years. If John Summerall's doing a great job and Kiffin's flamed out, then everyone will be like, great job. If it's the other way, Strickland will probably be fired. It's it's all results based at the end of the day.
Real quick, one job that surprised you so far, or one job that you're surprised hasn't gotten filled yet? What's one
Penn
job?
State.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
You think you fire? I was also super surprised that Will Stein would take Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, I get apparent, especially being from Louisville. Now, apparently, he maybe went to Louisville, but his family's been a Kentucky family. I don't know. I haven't really investigated that deep, but that seemed a bit of a shocker to me because he was a guy that, I thought could have been up for like USF. Now, you can say Kentucky can pay you a lot more money. So, all right, cool. Like Mark Stoops is probably pretty happy he went to Kentucky. He's getting like $40 million over the next few years. So he's fine with that. But Penn State is the one. You think you fire a guy like Franklin
early?
You got something lined up.
Yeah,
you got something lined up. You got something kind of because just look at the Kentucky search. It was like Mark Stoops. No, he's good. And then it's like we're firing Mark Stoops. Day later, we've got Will Stein. I mean, that's pretty like we had. If we're going to get rid of this guy that's won a lot of games for us, now maybe it's not working as well as it should now, but he's won a ton of games for us. He's done a really good job for the program. If we're going to get rid of him, we probably want to have something lined up pretty quick. Kentucky had it. Penn State, which when it got, when they made that move, were the number one in the job in the market by a long shot. They're still waiting. They may hire the interim. I don't know, man. That seems like they may have whiffed on a couple guys, and now they're struggling a little bit because even Bob Chesney was the guy that his name got brought up. He's going to UCLA now, so I'm not sure where they are on their hot board.
I don't think they know. I don't even know if they have a hot board. They have a warm or a cold board. I think
most of the names have gone cold on the board. It's unfortunate. So
they're like. I could just imagine them at Penn State going, "Hey, man, I don't know if you guys know this, but Virginia Tech just signed this young coach. I think he might do a good job. We got
some Big Ten experience, some SEC experience.
They call him Jimmy Franklin. Franklin. How great would that be?
That'll be one. If they just elevate their interim, I think that'll be a tough look for old Pat Kraft. But we'll see. Maybe he's got something up his sleeve.
Maybe we'll be maybe they'll be the smart guys at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're smarter because you join us here on the program, my good friend Seth Varnadore, because he's the best Italian I know. Bay Area Examiner.
Am I allowed to do that?
Him out. You could do that, of course. Bay Area Examiner, they're who we go for. Nobody covers USF quite like them. Seth, you're the man. Appreciate it, buddy. Have a great week. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks for having me on.
You got it, pal. Man, unbelievable discussion about all things USF and Florida with Seth, our guys at Bay Area Examiner, all over. Go check them out, man. Their Discord's awesome. Discord has some fantastic conversations in there. You don't know what the hell they're going to be talking about. But yeah, you want to talk about big boards. You want to talk about all the different possibilities of who could be the next leading man at USF to come in after Alex Golish. Those are the guys I trust. That's where I go to get my information when it comes to USF, the Bay Area Examiner. It doesn't get much better than that. Just seeing Florida expected to hire Kentucky's Brad White as its defensive coordinator. So there you go. Led the way for 4 Kentucky defenses that rank in the top 25 nationally during his 7 seasons as the team's DC. So there you go. That's what Seth was just alluding to of, all right, making a decision when it comes to coordinators for Coach Summerall there in Gainesville. So we'll see. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be really cool because we're, as much as we've already gotten like names and we've gotten people going to these different spots, it's not over, man. It's not over. There's going to be more movement. I'm so intrigued by this Penn State job. What are they doing, man? This is one of those, and listen, Ian said it yesterday when we were discussing. I think sometimes you get to a point, I think Notre Dame got this probably Brian Kelly, where you get to kind of when they were in that Charlie Weiss phase there. I think some of these schools get to the point where that they're so stuck on what their lore is. They're so stuck on the history of their school that they're not operating in today's world. And they just think that their legacy and they think about their history and that means everything. And it's not. It's not. You need to show that you're evolving and show that you're changing with the times because you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds. So the allure of playing for Penn State may not mean the same thing to these kids nowadays. That's something you really have to consider. I think Alabama was at that place too in the Shula years too, before they ever went the Nick Saban route. And I think it's really on the entire leadership of these college programs to realize where they're at and to understand how they're viewed nationally. You may think that you're a big dog. You may think that you're one of these programs that everybody loves. Yeah, you may be, but I mean, are kids still going to go to play for you? We don't know. The Power Hour is up. What a discussion we've had. Bucks, Lightning, and of course USF with Seth Varnadore from Bay Area Examiner. Go check those guys out. We love them. Talking all things USF. All right, I'm back shilling him for Anthony Beck. So you can go kiss my ass if you're calling me a shill. I don't care. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms at Recher, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. I don't care, man. You got to own it. You got to love life. Don't take it too serious. Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC, 813-244-0956. The residential, the commercial needs, whatever you got. Tell them that you heard it right here on the Recher podcast. You get a discount, no doubt about it. Everhealth.org, 17 different locations in Pinellas County. Really, really good stuff there. Tomorrow, Eric Erlinson joins us, lightninginsider.com. We'll have some updates. We'll hear from Todd Bowles. We'll hear from Baker Mayfield. And we'll hopefully talk about another Lightning victory. I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate you all, Richie, Eddie, Benny, everybody in the crew here, the big bad wrecking crew, the Recher's crew. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Recher podcast.